Alrighty, dudes, we are back again with the first reaping key of the season. We got a 19 Underrot. So first off, you're going to see us pulling this Blood Matron and this Fetid Maggot together. You also see me tag that Nesmani Weevil in order to be able to keep my AP. You see me pre-popping Incarn in order to be able to keep that as long as possible. I unfortunately actually died to this Blood Matron because I don't end up moving out of it start / quick enough, but that's just one of those things that was just a minor mistake. I tried to walk through it as opposed to dodging from left to right because I was like worried about pulling the ticks, so I walked through it, but I did start walking a little bit late, so that was the reason that we ended up wiping. You can actually cancel that cast from the Blood Matron with just a Typhoon or whatever else, but I instead tried to walk through it because I didn't have Typhoon up. But you do see me die there, not really that big of a deal. The Savage Cleave, I obviously just end up releasing right here. I tried to bear form it, but I moved too slowly. Nothing was really lost, honestly. These Underrot ticks, pretty scary, especially on bursting, so that kind of thing, be looking out for that. It's pretty good for Swift Mend off healing, also pretty good for Wild Growth off healing, so making sure that you're off healing the group, getting your group topped up. You see us using Darkness there. I hop in the Darkness too in order to be able to reduce my damage taken. Just those kind of things are very important in order to be able to get out of bursting, because bursting got buffed lately, so pretty spooky as an fix as a whole, so pretty good for the Moonkin. You see me elect to use my second Incarn here, and I'm going to be using it to DPS down this Devout Blood Priest. The Devout Blood Priest is obviously the most important target in the pack due to the cast that it does cast. It casts like a Gift of Gahoon and a Blood Bolt. Obviously, the Blood Bolt does a decent amount of damage. Gift of Gahoon ends up healing the mobs to full, so making sure that you're able to kick those on cooldown is pretty good. Solar Beam, very good for that pack. As for Azurite traits, I am actually playing Triple Arcanic Pulsar, Triple Streaking Stars. So Triple Arcanic Pulsar, the reason for that is because I don't really have anything else, so that's a thing. Triple Streaking Stars, I actually believe on high levels of Tyrannical, and just in general, Triple Streaking Stars is not that bad. You only need so much AoE in a dungeon, and while Streaking Stars might not be the best for overall DPS, I think it might be the best in order for you to be able to complete the dungeon in time. You're going to see me later how I'm using my Incarn. I'm going to end up popping it on like high priority targets, making sure that I'm popping it on bosses, making sure that it's up at reliable times. The way that you don't use it, and in this first video of the season, it's probably pretty important to talk about, you never really Incarn on Reaping. Honestly, Incarning on Reaping is kind of a bait. Making sure that you do have Trents and Solar Beam up for depending on the Reaping packs, depending on what kind of mobs are in there, is important, but making sure that you have Incarn up for Reaping is not good. Like Incarning Reaping, the mobs last too short, you don't get enough damage out regardless, and it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Just making sure that, because we see me, I'm running here with a Assassination Rogue and a Havoc Demon Hunter. The Assassination Rogue is obviously running a decent amount of AoE. He has these traits, they're called something Knives. It's whenever he fans of Knives, it does a decent amount of damage. So he has pretty good AoE traits. In the Havoc Demon Hunter, of course, Havoc Demon Hunter is actually insane for damage, so making sure that you have a pretty good composition for you to be able to play full single target is pretty important. You also see something kind of cool here. I do actually elect to innervate the Resto Druid on pull here. The reason for me electing to innervate the Resto Druid on pull is because whenever he's in cat form with innervate, he actually loses no energy, so he's able to hit these big bites and do a decent amount of damage on the opener, as you see right there. I got assigned first kick on the ad here. You obviously see me using Solar Beam here. Moonkin's obviously not the best for kicking, but it is what it is. And you will see me end up using my second Incarn just as soon as it comes up here in a second, about 25-ish seconds or so. So making sure that, like, while I did use my Incarn on a trash pack, it is still going to be up for the boss, even though I didn't get it during Bloodlust. It's not going to be that much damage differential, and we're going to be able to push the boss at a pretty decent pace. So that's always good. So it's not always important that you have Incarn on pull for bosses. Of course, it's like pretty good, but it's not the most important thing. But making sure that you just have it available during the boss encounters specifically, or if you were otherwise going to get two, then it might be important for you to have it on pull. But otherwise, just making sure that you do have it at least once up is pretty good. Obviously, there are some bosses where getting two is really important, though. This boss, and most of the bosses in Underrot die relatively quickly. Won't be dying won't be dying shorter than my Incarn cooldown. Obviously, you see me using my first. Whenever I get Incarn, you see me cranking it in the effigy here, making sure that it's not getting too many casts, because there is only a certain number of casts that your melee and your tank are able to get, especially with you as a Moonkin with a pretty long cooldown on your interrupt. Alrighty. And so that's going to be it for this boss. You actually do also see me using Incandescent Sliver. That's the Opulence Trinket. Whenever you are not in range of other friendly players, it starts building up. If they also have the Trinket, then we'll also still build up. It's pretty good for Mythic Plus as a whole, because 5 mans, you do have pretty good control over your positioning, so it does have pretty high uptime. Alrighty. You're going to see us pull these double... the double Blood Swarmer, 1 Maggot pack. Making sure that you're DPSing down 1 Blood Swarmer as quickly as possible is super important. And we actually go pretty ambitious here. We start doubling it up with another double Disease Lasher pack. So making sure that you're able to DPS down the Blood Swarmer. The 2 Blood Swarmers are the most important mobs in this pack. Just making sure that you have enough interrupts for the Disease Lashers and you'll be good to go. Another thing for the Disease Lashers is they have a Tainted Mind debuff. It's called Decaying Mind, I'm sorry. Whenever you get Decaying Mind, you either get a heal absorb, or it can be dispelled by poisons. The only poison dispel we actually have in this group is Cytor or Brewmaster Monk, because druids don't have poison dispels. But making sure that you do have either throwing out a Swift Mend, or making sure that your healer off heals up the Decaying Mind, or making sure that you're having it kicked is very important. Obviously, you saw Solar Beam coming up pretty late here. I'm electing to save it for the next pack, so that's pretty good. I talked to them in voice and was like, do you want Solar Beam here, or would you like me to save it? And he's like, save it. So we were electing to just save it for the next pack after this. Alrighty. And so Reaping overall, not the greatest to fix for Moonkin in terms of player perception, but I actually do believe that Moonkin is still good even during Reaping. They're more utility bots than anything else, and they do end up casting a significant amount of priority target damage. So it's really good, but people do have a misconception of how bad it is because people want to do big numbers, and it's like, it's not an Outlaw Rogue, it's not an Assassination Rogue, it's not a Havoc Demon Hunter, it's not a Windwalker Monk, it's not an Unholy Death Knight, it's not a Demonology Lock, it's none of those high damage classes, but it does still have a pretty big importance in terms of what it does bring to the group. Force of Nature and Solar Beam are by far the most important. They're 2 of the most important abilities in Mythic Plus as a whole, just because Solar Beam allows you to pull significantly quicker, and because of Solar Beam, you're able to do a little bit more of aggressive of pulls, being able to double up some packs sometimes and kill them inside the 8-second Solar Beam window. Making sure that you're able to Force of Nature in order to save your tank is actually very important during this Reaping effects, because your tank does end up building this debuff that Trent's does also reset. And you're going to also see me, I'm going to have a really good Solar Beam usage here. It's going to save us people getting Decaying Mind. I'm also going to elect to pop Incarn here. Popping Incarn here is not the worst. I'm going to be cranking it into the Disease Lashers because the Disease Lashers have significantly higher priority than the Living Rots here. Maybe not the highest value in terms of damage because I have to move a ton, but it is still a really good Incarn because the pack beyond that, you're going to end up wasting up time on Incarn, and the way that you have to end up playing Incarn, especially with triple Streaking Stars, triple Arcanic Pulsar, is that you're going to be looking to play it as more of like a single target damage bot, where you're actually just kind of crank in to the high priority target mobs and be able to just let your group kind of carry you on AoE. And you do have to get kind of used to that, and there's nothing wrong with it. People in pugs and otherwise general community perception is kind of skewed for Bounce Druid as a whole, and there's nothing I can say that would really fix it, but I do believe that Moonkin is still a top tier range DPS, and so I don't think you should be worried. You do just kind of have to play it a little bit different, because the way you play Moonkin has changed a significant amount since Battle for Azeroth came out compared to Legion. Because in Legion, honestly, we were pretty OP. We had a lot of AoE, we had an okay amount of single target damage, we had still the insane utility that you know and love, and then basically there was no real downsides to bringing a Moonkin in any of the stuff. You actually see me Bull Rush there. Bull Rush on, it's good a button. You also see me trying to DPS down and single target down the Feral Blood Swarmer. I'm going to pop Barkskin here because I'm going to be getting hit by a couple of the melees. You see me get Iron Barked, I Swift Mend myself, and I'm standing in the darkness eating the Blood Swarmer melees. Making sure that you do have cooldowns, defensives lined up in order to be able to kind of eat the melees sometimes is pretty important, because you do want the Blood Swarmer to stay in melee. If you dash out too far, the Blood Swarmer will actually just run at you and kind of track you down. Yeah, no. So this is actually super cool. You actually see our tank here die, and it's actually getting really close. I end up Swift Mending myself. We do end up getting a battle res off on him, so it's actually not going to be too big of a loss, but it could have been pretty scary there. You also see me elect to use Innervate, which he called for Innervate, but then the tank died instantly, so that was not the best use of Innervate. But making sure that your healer actually gets Innervate too, especially if you're running with a Resto Druid, is very important, because Resto Druid doing damage in cat form helps also make up for the fact that you're not the highest damage class for AoE and for overall damage, but you do have the significant added benefit of being able to do a lot of priority target damage. And that's what I'm trying to preach from this video. I'm trying to preach that there's this alternative style to playing Moonkin that people have been kind of complaining because they're not top damage. There's nothing wrong with not being top damage, but you do have to understand how to play if you are playing a more aggressive single target style. And you just see me playing this triple Streaking Stars, which I actually think is very good. I think other weeks there's stuff that's going to be better. I think for an MDI style formatted thing, I think triple Lively, 1 Treacherous Covenant, 1 Power of the Moon, and 1 Arcanic Pulsar is obviously very good. But I do think that overall, I think this triple Streaking Stars, like kind of raid setup where you have Arcanic Pulsar and Streaking Stars and you're able to crank single target is really good for pugs, is really good for groups with slightly worse coordination where you're not in like an MDF style thing. And it's also good if your group understands what you're doing. Making sure that you additionally also know how to use your cooldowns, very important. Alright, additionally something cool that I don't do here, but you can actually hibernate the Biomaggot. The only issue with that is the Biomaggot's cast is 1.5 seconds, where your hibernate is generally like 1.2 to 1.3 seconds, so making sure that you're hibernating it really quickly is pretty good. You see the Bloodswarmer fixate me, I instantly pop Barkskin. You're actually going to see me pop Incarnation here, and I'm going to start hammering down this Bloodswarmer. Obviously, Bloodswarmers in Underrot are some of the highest priority targets that you could be killing. That's why Moonkin is actually very good in Underrot. Moonkin is very good in Underrot, King's Rest. I would say they're really good in Toll to Gore, especially if you don't have Belf racials where you're able to purge, Arcane Torrents or whatever. They're also very good in Motherload for the utility reasons, also single target, priority target damage reasons. Those are the reasons that it's good in those dungeons. So making sure that you don't have to be playing single target in all of those dungeons, but playing single target in Underrot, King's Rest, those kind of dungeons where you do have like a lot of high priority target mobs, like you see the Feral Bloodswarmer being for us, is pretty good. And making sure that you're able to just use your cooldowns appropriately, I mean, you'll be good to go. Honestly, Arcanic Pulsar is a very, very valuable trait, and I think with me doing about 8% of my damage just from Streaking Stars in a Mythic Plus dungeon, I think that actually just proves that Streaking Stars is also still very good in Mythic Plus, even though it's not going to be topping damage, but you just have to understand how to play around it a little bit more. Obviously, there's some things that would be a little bit better, like if I swapped Arcanic Pulsar, or not Arcanic Pulsar, Power of the Moon, or stuff like that, so it might be a little bit worse damage-wise, but I think it's a fine style for me to be playing. I really hope you guys like these kind of videos. I had the option between doing this today or doing the Opulence video, the Mythic Opulence video, and I did in fact choose to do this Underrot 19 video. Just trying to get a reaping video out, that kind of thing. I do hope you guys like it, and if you are liking the content, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, that kind of thing. So thank you guys so much. Also, there's going to be stuff down in the description like Discord plugs, Patreon, my Twitch. So kind of check some of that stuff out. Shoot me a follow on Twitch. That would actually mean the world to me. Check all my stuff out. Join the Discord if you have any questions or anything. Feel free to hit me up anytime. Perfect, guys. And you're also going to see us pulling Cragmaw in a second. And Cragmaw basically is... It's probably the hardest boss in this dungeon. Cragmaw and Elder Leaxa are the hardest bosses in this dungeon for a couple reasons. So Cragmaw actually has a pretty big healing check, especially during the intermission, since a lot of people are spread. But Elder Leaxa has like more of a damage check, making sure that you're able to burn through her quickly is pretty important. You actually see me starting Cragmaw off with an 8-stack Arcanic Pulsar, and we're actually going to cross the room here. The reason that we're crossing the room in the beginning is to be able to bait charges a little bit easy. I want to say this beforehand, I actually die on this boss because I end up looking at my Incandescent Sliver buff. Should probably be watching the boss, especially whenever he's charging. Don't do that, because that was a pretty bad move by me. You see me proccing my Arcanic Pulsar, I instantly drop my trees. I also have innervated our healer in order to be able to make sure that he's able to do a decent amount of damage as well. Healer damage is actually kind of relevant, not always the most relevant thing in terms of how much time it saved, but it is relevant in terms of the value of innervate versus, like the global value of innervate versus the global value of your Solar Wrath or whatever, especially during Incarn or whatever, is pretty good. You see me running around with Incarn, I do end up popping it a little bit later than desired, but I'm not going to miss too much time. The reason that I end up not missing too much time is because he does end up in this phase 1 for about 40 to 45-ish seconds before he does do his Tantrum cast. As for cooldowns on this fight, something to look cooldown rotationally, you're going to be looking to Bark the first one, and then I normally use Engineering Belt or some sort of off heal like a Swiftmend, Engineering Belt plus Swiftmend for the second one, and then I end up Bark skinning the third one again. Running around in Travel Form. Also, I normally end up running around Travel Form the first one, especially with a group like a Demon Hunter rogue where they do have a decent amount of mobility. I end up running around, travel form the first one, then I dash the second one. But yeah, it's just something to think about in terms of how you're playing around this kind of stuff. And then obviously I'll bark skin the third one in order to be able to reduce the damage taken for the whole entire group, making sure that I'm not going to die or anything. I think I'm going to die here in a second to the charge because I don't end up looking. I think it's either this intermission or next intermission. It ended up not costing us very much because we do have a battle res available, but it's obviously not exactly what you were hoping for. I'm sitting out here in range because I want my incandescent sliver to stack, and I was sitting there looking at it. I guess it's coming out of the phase is whenever I end up dying. So you instantly see me pop my engineering belts. I'm going to be looking to probably coastal healing potion right there, like you see, and I might swiftman myself out of the phase like that. Perfect. That's what I was hoping I was going to do. Yeah, no, making sure that you're able to keep yourself topped up, especially during those highly volatile trample cast. Sick move, Peyton. Good one. Real big brain. Making sure that you're able to keep yourself topped up during those highly volatile and high damage tramples is pretty important. Obviously, we don't lose very much from that. We don't even get another intermission phase, but making sure that you're focusing on the boss whenever he's charging is obviously very important. It just happens. It happens to everybody. Like, you look away for just half a second because you're looking at something else on your screen and you just end up dying to a mechanic. It just happens to everybody. Not really one of those things. It ended up not costing us very much, like, if anything at all. Oh, actually, no, we do end up getting another intermission. Not because I died, but just because we ended up getting another intermission. You see me running around. I actually have Barkskin back up, again, taking a lower amount of damage, like you would want to be doing for Barkskin. And then you see my Incarn coming up in a couple seconds. I'm actually going to get a pretty big Incarn value. So we're going to end up doing the worm plus the skeletons together. So I'm actually going to get a pretty big Incarn value out of this. So before this dungeon, we actually did an 18 and accidentally zapped the two mobs in front of Sporecaller. I thought they were going to live a little bit longer, but they ended up only living 20 seconds whenever I have my Incarnation rolling. So I made sure that this time I actually popped it on a little bit more of a desirable pack, which ends up being, you're going to see us para this worm, and then we're going to pull the skeletons on top of them, and I'm actually going to be cranking into the grotesque core whenever I do end up getting that targeted after a little bit. That's going to be pretty good. Alright, so I pop Incarn, I Sunfire, I end up like Moonfiring all the stuff. Obviously not great for streaking stars. You end up seeing me Solar Beam. I'm going to drop my Fury Balloon in Trent's, so making sure that you're able to drop... Moonkin ends up having like a really long ramp just because of Solar Beam, Trent... Solar Beam is not on GCD, but Trent's, Innervate if you end up giving your healer Innervate during the pull. And then Incarnation takes you a little while to ramp, making sure that you have everything dotted up. It just takes you a little bit of a while to get the ramp ended up starting. I should actually be single targeting down the Fallen Death Speaker, but I end up hitting just this Reanimated Guardian, trying to keep the mobs as even health as possible. Nothing really wrong with it. It's just a little bit more of a targeting thing. The Death Speaker is a little bit higher priority because he does have like a reanimation cast where he'll end up casting one of the Reanimated Guardians from full health, but like, as long as you do have melee kicks. He also casts a Wicked Frenzy, which is soothable, but the Wicked Frenzy requires you to soothe it before it melees the tank, otherwise it will already have applied the Enraged buff, and you can't soothe it after that. So it's kind of weird how it works. Something that actually is good about Moonkin on Reaping is that you can always Fury Balloon them for pretty much no cost. You end up seeing me Star Surging some of the Reaping mobs occasionally. The reason I end up Star Surging some of the Reaping mobs is due to either how much health they have, because if you don't know, Reaping mobs have, I think it's about 50% of the mob's natural health, so some of the mobs are going to have a significant amount more health than other mobs, so making sure that you're able to single target maybe some of those high priority target Reaping mobs is going to be pretty important. Obviously I don't have Incarn for this pack this time around, because the first time around I actually zapped this pack with Incarn in accident and killed it in 20 seconds and was like, please pull the boss, please pull the boss. I still have Incarn rolling, but that was pretty good. Alrighty. So Sporecaller, honestly, not that concerning of a fight. Most of Sporecaller's issues come within the first set of mushrooms that you get from the Festering Harvest going on the whole entire group. Festering Harvest, obviously, is whenever Sporecaller starts channeling a cast, for casts about 6 seconds or so, he then will make all the mushrooms that are not blown up uproot themselves. So you're going to be wanting to soak them with either immunities. You could actually dispel it because it's also a poison, so that's pretty good. You actually see me getting knocked up there and then getting poisoned, but then I'm gonna be okay because it doesn't do too much damage. But that's obviously not exactly what you're looking for, but it's okay. It happens. Like, obviously I should probably just like be wild charging it every single time, but I always worry about wild charging because if you wild charge the wrong way, then you'll insta-kill yourself as opposed to eating the ground effect, which won't kill you. So yeah, so that's always good. We have the Festering Harvest, we have all the mushrooms cleared out, so making sure that all the mushrooms are cleared out and then eating that Festering Harvest is pretty good. You do see our rogue actually dipping pretty low, but he actually ends up living. You see Incarn coming up, pretty good timing for Incarn. Obviously, like I said, you don't need it on pull. Like, we're not lusting here. There's no actual damage gain by having it on pull. Like, maybe slightly lower amounts of movement, but nothing too terribly much. You see me popping my Fury Wind and my Trents, dodging out of the way of the spores. Actually, accidentally nick one, but not really that big of a deal. Hitting one of the spores is not going to do too much damage. The only time that you can actually die on this fight is whenever he's casting the Festering Harvest. The Festering Harvest will actually do a pretty decent amount of AoE damage to your whole entire group. I think I end up having to soak the 2 stack of mushrooms, and I think I end up getting a Dispel from our Brewmaster Monk because it is in fact a poison, and monks do actually have a poison Dispel. You see me eating those 2, and then I'm walking in melee because we have a Darkness dropped. I don't get the lucky RNG, but I do survive nevertheless, so it's not that big of a deal. I don't actually know our Demon Herd died to there. Okay, whatever. Nothing lost. Like, we still have battle res. We don't end up wasting too much time. It's just like 5 seconds on the timer. Underrot's a pretty lenient timer check, especially whenever we have a comp like this. Moonkin's really good for Underrot, honestly. Moonkin's one of the better classes for Underrot just because of how much priority target damage that is required on the first half of the instance. And basically, once you're on the back half, it's pretty much smooth sailing, as long as you haven't wiped to something stupid, right? Like, obviously, there's worms that you can accidentally face pull or whatever else, but making sure that you're able to be okay with that kind of thing is relatively important, but you'll be good to. You also see me running, grabbing that mushroom, calling for Dispel, get the Dispel, and then hop into melee to get as much AoE healing as possible. And so yeah, no, this fight's pretty much over. I'm going to proc my Arcanic Pulsar here in a second, get over 88 AP in order to be able to get as many mini surges off in the Arcanic Pulsar window as I can. I don't even know if I play it correctly or not. Oh, I don't have enough AP gen because I don't have Nature's Balance, so I need to get a little bit higher than 88 AP, I guess. But it's okay. Notable. Alrighty. And Sporecaller is going to be going down here in just a couple more seconds, and then we are onwards to the finish line in this Underrot 19. I really hope you guys are liking this style of video. I actually really enjoy doing them. It's pretty fun for me, having like a commentary over like my runs, trying to give you guys some insight as to what you should be looking for, how you should be playing dungeons, that kind of thing. So I actually do hope you guys enjoy this kind of stuff. Yeah, I actually enjoy doing it a pretty decent amount. So you're going to see me saving my incarnation for the pack after this one. We're going to be doing double Faceless Horror after this, and I'm going to be popping my incarn in that. So pretty good value in terms of how you're going to be using incarn here. Like, I could use it like straight up just on these reanimated guardians right here, but it's not going to save us enough time over the course of the whole entire dungeon, especially since these mobs are pretty lower. It might be a little bit better for my overall damage, but I think it's going to be worse for the group speed. And that's kind of what I'm preaching. I want you to be looking and making assessments in terms of what's best for the group, not only what's best for your overall damage. Because I think that's best for your overall damage is probably just to pop Incarn on every single Reaping pack, but that seems like a trap. Sounds like a bad idea. Alrighty, you're going to be seeing us shrouding just as soon as we do get these reanimated guardians down. You're going to see us wait for the bursting to fall off. You're going to see wait for the stagger to fall off for a second. And then we're going to be shrouding through to this Faceless Horrors over there and being able to get onto the final boss quickly. I'm actually going to be trying to stand as far away from the Faceless Horrors as I possibly can in order to be able to not get hit by their fear. You can also knock all of the casts with Typhoon. You see me knocking it probably right here. And yeah, now I'm just chilling in the back. I'm going to Trents here in a second just because I have Incarn rolling. And we're just trying to get through this pack as quickly as possible. You're kind of crunched on space, so it's kind of worrisome occasionally because we're going to be going back and doing the worm later, but we're not doing it now, so you can only move so far to the right without accidentally pulling the worm. But just making sure that you're watching out for the Abyssal Reaches and the Maddening Gaze is important. You see the Maddening Gaze facing me, I'm running away, run away, run away. And yeah. Overall, I think this is a pretty good pull for my Incarn, especially since we do also have the Demon Hunter die, so the pack lasted a little bit longer than otherwise would be. I think it would have been perfect timing for my Incarn if our Demon Hunter didn't die, but our Demon Hunter did die. Again, we actually have a couple deaths in this dungeon, but none of them cost us anything beyond like the death timer, really. Death timer plus res timer. You do see us waiting a second in order to res the Demon Hunter. We're going to kill the worm. Then we're actually going to proc Reaping off the worm. And then we're going to jump down into the Underrot tomb. All the Reaping mobs are going to teleport to us, and we're going to have a pretty easy job in order of grouping them up down there, because there's only one caster in this whole entire pack that we're doing. So grouping them up, we'll just walk the mobs on top of the one caster, and then we're just going to kind of zap it and then pull the boss. Alright, you see the Reaping coming out. The door is opening. We instantly jump in. And we're on our way, dudes. I've actually been enjoying Reaping significant more amount than Infested, in my own personal opinion too. Game's just been significantly more fun for me for Reaping because for me, Infested was bad for a multitude of reasons, but a lot of it came from the fact that Infested was amplified by fixes, had the highest priority target of mobs, which had to be CC'd in the specific ways, and was just overall very obnoxious. So I was not a fan, and there was a reason that I wasn't doing as many Infested keys as I've done in seasons past, in Legion, and now I've been getting back into keys inside of BFA, and I've been enjoying Reaping as a whole. The fix itself is whatever, but how you end up doing the dungeons is what's been pretty fun for me. You also see our Demon Hunter getting tank frontaled on accident. So basically, the lost spirits or whatever end up having like this little frontal ability that they put at their feet. Don't stand there. I don't know what to say. You're gonna see us grouping up in melee. I innervate our healer again in order for him to be able to do the most amount of damage, especially since there's not too much happening before we start getting stacks. This is a pretty good time for him to get innervate. I don't have Incarn during Bloodlust here, but it ends up not mattering because, like I said, having Incarn at appropriate times in order to what saves you the most amount of time and for priority target damage will end up saving you more time than making sure that you have Incarn at the most perfect time a lot of the time, especially for bosses. Like having it on the boss is better than having it at the perfect time on the boss. Having it on the boss sometimes is better than having it at the perfect time on the boss, is what I was trying to say. Sorry. You also see me end up actually getting some overlap. I get about 10 seconds of overlap versus of Incarn plus Bloodlust anyway, so it ends up not mattering too terribly much. Bloodlust, for those of you who don't know, I guess I'm just referring to the drums of the mountain or whatever. Also known as Heroism, also known as Time Warp, whatever else it's called. Yeah, that kind of thing. You see me getting good value off that Blood Visage. He walks into melee and I just end up dotting it. I mean, obviously you don't want to be dotting targets that don't need to die, but if for like the Blood Visage's sake, it's fine to dot it, because it needs to die. It's my justification for that. You're also going to see me popping Starfall later on as the fight goes longer, as we are getting a little bit more crammed for space, and those rotting spores do end up getting closer to us. Dropping Starfall in order to be able to create a safe zone around your whole entire group is pretty important. Sometimes I like to Sunfire them, most of the time I'll just end up electing Starfall. Starfall ends up creating like a significantly longer amount, and especially for the globals cost that you ended up having to Sunfire. Starfall is pretty good value. I think you're gonna see me use it right there. Like, look at how much of the room I end up clearing out, whereas that would be like 3 or 4 Sunfire casts. So it's not too bad. I think Starfalling is okay, especially with the AP. I actually really like Bull Rush in this fight because you can just Bull Rush across the room. You end up seeing me Sunfire there because I think Sunfire is like a better option on how many mobs there were grouped up there. Plus, I also don't want to drop like all my AP on Starfall sometimes, so it's okay. And I end up Starfalling there anyways. But like, making sure that the group is not going to wipe to these spores getting too close to us is more important than making sure that I do the most damage I can possibly do to the boss. Like that stuff kind of doesn't matter, especially whenever you're trying to push the timer. Like maybe if I was trying to push for the MDI or something like that, I'd be looking for maybe a little bit more of a more damage aggressive position in terms of how I'm pushing this, but it's okay. I think Starfalling there is actually just perfectly acceptable. Making sure that the group is okay. You're gonna see me proc my pulsar here, and we got big dam coming in, boys. And by big dam I mean medium dam, but it's okay. That pool ends up spawning underneath me and almost killing me, but I end up moving it out. Like sometimes the pools just spawn random around the Unbound Abomination, and we do get the last Blood Visage spawning out, so we just end up DPSing that down. You no longer need to hit the Unbound Abomination. And the fight's pretty much over once you do get these last set of Blood Visages that spawn with the Unbound Abomination about at 30% health. We did it, boys. So 19-1 chest, first Reaping Key, made a video on of the season. Hope you guys enjoyed. Give it a like, follow, subscribe, whatever. Check my stuff down in the description. Later, guys.